get into the actual news. We're going to start with one of the big ones because this is not just a follow-up. This is a new development in the selling of Warner Brothers. Is this the first one that I wanted to talk about? Yes, I believe this is the first one. We have 3 stories here that are all about the same thing. And we're going to get into it. And then also something that wasn't in the thumbnail or in the title, but is going to be a big thing that we talk about this week is the new Metroid Prime 4 trailer just dropped. I just watched it this morning, watched a couple of breakdowns of it, and we have some reasonably nerdy things to cover there, so we'll get into that. But yeah, so we have a development with the whole Warner Brothers sale, specifically a Saudi firm following. Oh, this is not the first piece. Let's click the link and go to the first piece. There we go. So Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan, and Saudis set to bring back the Snyderverse. I did grab that one, didn't I? I guess not. Anyway, so set to bring back the Snyderverse. On the eve of the anniversary of the theatrical Justice League release, our insiders have reached out. So this is from the 16th, so 2 days ago. Reached out with major updates about. So this started as rumor, but then we have some developments since this started. Major updates about Zack Snyder, the sale of Warner Bros. Discovery, and what is now being described as full play scenario for the return of the Snyderverse. That is correct. Apparently, it's not 100% dead, but Warner Bros. Discovery is officially up for sale. That is not a rumor. That is actually news we've been actively covering since it started. No coincidence that Zack Snyder has been posting nonstop DCEU images and liking fan content on Instagram that compares the performance of his films to James Gunn's struggling DCU projects. The timing lines up with what we have been told. If WB is sold, James Gunn will be out as head of DC Studios. That also is kind of obvious. Like, nobody who is attempting to purchase DC has explicitly said such things, but it has very heavily been implied. Continuing, this comes from the same insider who told us Daredevil Born Again was being completely retooled months before the Hollywood Reporter confirmed it exactly as we reported. It's the same source who has been accurately filling us in WB sale and David Zaslav's plan before the trades caught up. Their track record speaks for itself. So, the Snyderverse. Regarding DC, the message from our insider is clear. The Snyderverse is back in play fully. That means Zack Snyder returning to DC, not just for a one-off Elseworlds title, but for an actual revival of the universe he started. Now, this has me super freaking worried because all of the reasons we've already covered why the Snyderverse is not as good as people want us to think. Is it better than Gunn's DCU? That I feel like is debatable. Like, I can see where people would have an argument to be made there, but I would honestly put them at about the same level as far as the quality. Obviously, performance is another thing, but there's been a number of factors at play that have affected box office sales since the Snyderverse was a thing. So I think that there's less of an argument to be made there, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about here. The quality of the Snyderverse, I mean, the biggest thing is you have 2 major superheroes in the Snyderverse who did 2 things they never do in modern continuity. Batman used guns to zero effect, also, by the way, and Superman killed. And that's all I need to say. That is Zack Snyder's modern update. And yeah, I mean, I guess technically Batman kills too, because he kind of mows dudes down with that machine gun. So, like, it's a little silly. Continuing on. Where is it? Where did we leave off? Oh, yeah. We're told Christopher Nolan. No, we're up here. Regarding DC. Nope. That's where we are. Christopher Nolan. We're told Christopher Nolan is also part of the plan to return as executive producer. The same Christopher Nolan who backed Snyder on Man of Steel and helped shape the original vision for DC before WB derailed it with studio interference. According to what we have previously been told, it was also Nolan's decision to hand over DC to Snyder. So if we have Christopher Nolan in the big chair on top, as far as the Marvel or the DC movies are concerned, that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable because we already know the amazing quality that he is capable of putting out with superhero movies. So, while Snyder has publicly said he wanted to end his DC career with an adaptation of Dark Knight Returns, we're now told that the impending sale of WB Discovery has shifted everything. He's pivoting towards restoring the Snyderverse outright. If that happens, it implies the return of Ben Affleck as Batman, who publicly rejected working with Gunn's DCU after its announcement, and Henry Cavill as Superman. Fans remember Cavill's widely seen interview with Josh Horowitz confirming his comeback, only for Gunn to immediately upend it. Gal Gadot has also been visibly active supporting the Snyderverse posts because of course she is. That's the most relevant she's ever been. None of this is accidental. Even Ezra Miller is making some sort of Hollywood is he really? So update. We're going to get into those updates. The Saudis in the driver's seat. We're told Saudi Arabia is now the front runner to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. According to our source, they're in the driver's seat with their $1 trillion fund. So this, I'm assuming, is the same Saudi group that purchased Evo and that purchased a portion of... Oh, what was that studio? The one with Jared Kushner as a part of it. That whole situation. That's all the same company. It's what it sounds like. They haven't said that explicitly, but that's what this sounds like. Another update. Paramount has teamed with this. Okay, so yeah, we have, like I said, this is actively developing right now. Snyder and the UFC partnered with Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority, chaired by Turkish Al-Sheikh, to produce Brawler, an upcoming film Snyder is directing and co-writing. Saudis trust Snyder creatively, and he is already tied directly to their entertainment expansion. Our insider says this is exactly why Snyder has been highlighting his Snyderverse work on social media. The signals aren't random, they're building momentum. We're told Hollywood as a whole is also signing massive new deals with the Saudis, including Trump, like I said, Jared Kushner, and figures connected to Trump's circle, like his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The kingdom wants major entertainment assets, major franchises, and major theme park IP. Quote, Zack Snyder and the UFC have a partnership with the country's General Entertainment Authority, led by Turkey Al-Sheikh, to produce a new movie titled Brawler. Snyder will direct and co-write the film. We just covered it, just repeating themselves at this point. So skipping that, moving on. Theme park, Power, Universal plus Warner. Our source also confirms that the Saudis want a massive Universal Warner theme park as part of their Vision 2030 initiative. That means the potential to bring DC Universe, Universal Monsters, Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all under one entertainment umbrella. Fully restored Snyderverse lines up with ambition. A Warner Brothers Discovery acquisition gives them everything. DC, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Universal Monsters, and Mortal Kombat. Let's not forget the Mortal Kombat and more. Our insider pointed us to comments from Hollywood producer Patrick Caliguri, who said he was the first to report Saudi Arabia's interest in Warner Bros. Discovery back in October. According to Caliguri, who recently returned from Saudi Arabia, the deal is nearly done. There is an update there as well. Stated that Saudi Arabia's acquisition of Warner Bros. Discovery is one signature away. That's right. That's a link for a reason. From completion, the price would reach $70 billion. If true, the sale could close faster than anyone expected, and the Snyderverse could return far sooner than fans ever thought possible. I don't remember if any of these other articles have this in it, but I did read something that said that it is possible that they could close this before year's end. Also, it is possible that they could close this before Christmas. So that's kind of huge. Next piece is one of those updates. So getting into this, following our report from yesterday about the return of Snyderverse, our insiders have filled us in on the larger plans behind the Saudi bid for Warner Bros. Discovery, and it explains why Zack Snyder has been posting nonstop and why Christopher Nolan continues publicly praising Snyder's influence on blockbuster filmmaking. Now, as much as I don't like the Snyderverse, as much as I think it is a bastardization of the DC mythos, I do have to acknowledge that that is an accurate statement, that he has had a strong and in most ways positive influence on blockbuster filmmaking. I feel like Snyder is kind of I can't even, Jerry Bruckheimer? No, who's the producer that always blows everything up? Michael Bay. Yeah, he's kind of a more modern version of Michael Bay. Thank you. But like, that's what most people go to the movies for, is for popcorn fodder. They're just going so they can turn their brains off and see cool things happen on the screen, not so that they can be preached at over the course of an hour and a half about how horrible people they are. Sorry, it is my stepfather's is celebrating a big thing today, so I'm probably going to get one or two more of those interruptions. Anyway. So according to what we're told, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, yes, this is the same group of Saudis that is investing in all of these other elements of Western culture, which is very interesting and potentially horrible because their culture, their way of life is not exactly 100% cohesive with Western culture. Western culture is kind of falling to pieces anymore, so they're moving in as a means to potentially heavily influence and change Western culture is theoretically the conspiracy theory for the long-term goal. But I don't know how much conspiracy that is. Anyway, continuing on. Public Investment Fund isn't just buying WB for content. They want to rival Marvel and build an event franchise on the scale of Avengers Doomsday, something James Gunn's DCU cannot deliver while the studio waits to be sold. Fair, because he just doesn't have the resources when they're in this kind of holding pattern. This lines up with what we've been reporting. Gunn's future at the DC, blah, blah, blah. We already talked about that. Can't greenlight massive crossover event because leadership knows ownership is about to change, why his slate is so small and insulated around the Superman stuff. We've talked about that ad nauseum as well. Gunn has openly stated that he doesn't want to touch Darkseid, which our insiders say is a key indicator. The Saudis view Snyder as the filmmaker meant to complete the DC epic he started, which of course features Darkseid as the villain. Christopher Nolan's movements are another major sign. Moved to Universal, he's currently filming The Odyssey in Morocco, where our insiders made a point of telling us it's close to the Saudi film expansion. So again, all of these pieces kind of lining up. Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund? Is that what it was? I can't remember. Where did you go? You okay? Yes, Public Investment Fund. Reportedly recently met with Comcast Universal about the Warner Brothers acquisition. Combine that with their $55 billion EA Games purchase. Remember, we just talked about that. And they're clearly constructing a multimedia empire that ties together film, games, sports, and theme parks. Also, apparently, Dana White has struck a deal with them, which I think might be mentioned in one of these other articles. Told Nolan and Snyder are the bellwether, meaning their moves signal whether the future blockbuster filmmaking is heading, where the future is heading. Nolan has been openly pointing to Snyder's influence on global blockbuster filmmaking, citing examples like RRR massive Indian action epic that was released in 2022, while major filmmakers such as the Russo brothers and James Cameron have echoed similar points. Snyder's relationship with Saudi Arabia is already established through his UFC partnership. There it is, on Brawler, which is backed by the country's General Entertainment Authority. We are specifically told that the Saudis and UFC favor Snyder's muscular filmmaking style, because of course they do. That is a big Muslim thing. Massive DC event is the goal. Note that. According to the insiders, the Saudis want an event-level DC universe that matches or surpasses Marvel as it peaks, at its peak, rather. And they don't think James Gunn is the answer. That type of crossover can only come from the Snyderverse, which again explains why Snyder has been actively posting images of Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Jared Leto, and Jason Momoa while the WB Discovery sale accelerates. I still think there is an element, I'm going to, again, cut from the article, I still think there is an element of Snyder posting those images as nostalgia bait. I think he's trying to drum up interest in something that will benefit. Like if people start buzzing about the Snyderverse again, that is going to greatly benefit the cause of trying to reinstate the Snyderverse. I think that it still isn't a done deal, and it very well could fall through, but if there is enough buzz, then it's more likely to be a good sell. So their goal is modern myth-making, and they see Snyder and Nolan as the only filmmakers capable of delivering a cultural event on that level. Christopher Nolan, yes, I think that's fair. Zack Snyder, I mean, the two of them together could be kind of the secret, because Snyder knows how to make things, not that Christopher Nolan doesn't know how to make things visually interesting, but Snyder's more flashy. Snyder is pop music, where Christopher Nolan is jazz in a lot of ways. So you put those two things together and you get something kind of incredible in theory, or it could be a giant dumpster fire. We will probably see eventually. Snyder has shifted into high gear. Insiders say this is why Zack Snyder has suddenly shifted into high gear on social media. Our insiders put it, the thing is, the Saudis want their investment in Warner Brothers to rival Marvel, and they want an event as big as Avengers Doomsday. James Gunn knows this time is uncertain and can't greenlight anything that big. Again, repeating themselves. So that's that article. And then we move to this one. So James Gunn now apparently, I think 7:07 p.m. Yep. Okay, I was right. So the next update on it is Gunn entering the fray. So a wild James Gunn has appeared. Had follow-up conversations with the insiders after asking obvious questions. If the Snyderverse really is coming back, what happens to James Gunn? We have previously reported that when Warner Brothers Discovery is sold, Gunn is expected to be out as head of DC Studios. After our report, Gunn even publicly questioned his own future. We covered that, it was like a month ago. He continues to focus only on his Superman family saga, not the larger DCU he originally announced. And insiders say that's because he knows the sale is coming. We were also told that if David Ellison and Paramount bought Warner Brothers Discovery, Gunn would be done. Ellison is connected to Trump. Variety recently confirmed that what has been reported here on Cosmic Book News, Paramount is going MAGA. As much as a Hollywood production company can, or really should, honestly, like I feel like the more neutral, the better in most ways. But Gunn has a long and well-known history with conservatives, and DCU has been viewed as politically divisive, if not outright woke, a major issue for any Trump-aligned ownership group. Fair. Yes, the Odyssey is still, I think Chef Boyardee is going in the vein of Five Nights at Freddy. Yes, I think you are correct, actually. Also, the Grimace movie. The Grimace movie has already been confirmed to be going in the direction of Five Nights at Freddy's. Sorry for the aside. For anybody who's watching in post, I'm talking to chat right now. And yes, the Odyssey is still actively being filmed. They wrapped on principal photography, from what I understand, but that means they have... I'm gonna brain fart the proper term. The makeup shots post. They're redoing the stuff in post. So they're not into post production. They're doing all of the catch up. I can't remember the word. I apologize. Brain fart, as happens, I would imagine. Anyway, back to the article at hand. Saudi's now the front runner to buy Warner Brothers. The landscape shifted again when the Saudis emerged as the frontrunner to purchase Warner Bros. Discovery. According to a Hollywood producer who first dropped the news, the deal is, quote, one signature away, like we just said. Our insiders say that if the Saudis take over, the Snyderverse will return, with Zack Snyder back in full swing. Christopher Nolan may also return as executive producer. We've been told the Saudis want to return a Snyderverse-level event to rival Marvel, we just covered. Naturally... the author here, who is, I think, the guy who runs, Matt, that runs Cosmic Book. Naturally, I pressed the insiders on Gunn's fate, even floating the idea that with a $1 trillion fund, maybe the Saudis would consider running two DC universes side by side, a restored Snyderverse and a separate Gunn-led DCU. From what I'm told, again, Matt here writing the article, even though the Saudis are also connected to Trump, there is speculation that Gunn could remain involved in some capacity or even collaborate. Which is kind of evidence to the idea that even though his Superman didn't do as well as hoped, it did do well with the more nerdy-minded. It did do well with the people they're trying to get back into the theaters. It did better, I guess, because his Superman didn't kill anybody. But then he had all those other issues that we've talked about, again, ad nauseum at this point. Our insiders explained that the Saudis would likely prefer stability at the start, saying they'd want things to keep humming without rocking the boat. Gunn has deferred to Snyder. Our insiders noted that Gunn himself has previously deferred to Snyder, suggesting Gunn may already know the direction things may be heading. They also noted that everyone's working on their personal roles for possible scenarios as the sale approaches. We can also add that both Gunn and Snyder got their start at Universal with Dawn of the Dead. Universal is also reportedly in the mix to acquire WB Discovery, potentially partnering with the Saudis, which this kind of gives it a lot more weight. We've also been told, many times that Gunn and Snyder are friends. The insider also pointed out Pierce Brosnan's recent comments about returning as Dr. Fate and said there is a general uptick in Snyderverse actors being discussed for potential comebacks. Snyder's own steady drip of DCEU images has only fueled that speculation. Insiders summed it up. There's a lot of table setting with previous Snyderverse characters possibly coming back. And then our final piece on this, as far as I know anyway, we'll refresh this real quick just in case. New York Post is now reporting Comcast executives are boasting behind the scenes that they, quote, have this in the bag as final bids for Warner Brothers Discovery are due this week. Wall Street, however, isn't buying it. Regulatory hurdles, weak cash reserves, and a heavily leveraged balance sheet make Comcast a long shot despite CEO Brian Roberts' aggressive push, according to the report. According to the site's antitrust insiders, a Comcast who owns Universal acquisition could take more than 2 years and still fail. The company's debt load low stock price, and limited liquidity are already red flags. But the real obstacle is political. Any takeover would require approval from the Trump administration's DOJ. And as noted, President Trump has no love for the CEO behind MSNBC and Saturday Night Live, two of the most anti-Trump platforms in media. though it's no longer MSNBC. It is now MS Now, and that just means all kind of funny things that we've covered previous episode. Meanwhile, Trump has already signaled who he wants to win. Paramount Skydance, led by David Ellison, whose family has deep ties to the Trumps. The Post also notes Roberts was spotted in Saudi Arabia meeting with the kingdom's public investment fund. Same PIF currently exploring its own bid for Warner Bros. Discovery, meaning Comcast would be partnering with the Saudis. Again, this is just solidifying what was previously speculation. Foreign-backed acquisition of major U.S. media asset raises its own regulatory complications, but the Saudis' connection is notable because Trump maintains a friendly relationship with Saudi leadership. In other words, Trump is friends with the Saudis. Problem solved. A Hollywood producer also said the Saudis believe the deal is done. Blah blah blah. Update. Here we go. There is an update. Report from Variety says the Saudis do not have any incentive to partner with Comcast because of Trump and are now backing Paramount. We'll follow up on that because that's news since I did this research. But according to the report, Trump is fully prepared to greenlight a Paramount Skydance nearly $60 billion cash offer. Ellison family's ties to Trump only strengthen that position. Paramount Skydance faces far fewer regulatory obstacles than Comcast, Netflix, or Amazon. Final bid's imminent momentum continues to favor parties aligned with Trump, and Comcast's confidence may be misplaced. So the newest update here is Skydance apparently is back in the front running for this. Paramount has reportedly joined forces with Saudi Arabia and two other Middle Eastern funds. So it's not just PIF. There's other funds involved here to increase its bid for Warner Brothers Discovery to $71 billion, topping the earlier Comcast Saudi offer by $1 billion. This comes after months of back and forth with Warner Brothers Discovery leadership, including David Zaslav, rejected multiple Paramount offers, including a previous $60 billion pitch. Another update here. Goodness. Actively developing here. Paramount denies Variety's report that the company was forming an investment consortium with the sovereign wealth funds of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi to submit a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. Wow. Update number 2. Insiders responded, noting that Paramount didn't specifically deny Saudi involvement. They also added, just remember, I still wouldn't count out Comcast Universal because they spun out MS Now from MSNBC to be an independent entity in anticipation of the bid to get the left-leaning channel out of Comcast because Trump hated it. And NBC is now centrist, more center-right. I would argue that that is not accurate. It might be heading that direction, but it is not there yet. Variety reports David Ellison's Paramount Skydance has aligned with sovereign wealth funds from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi, forming a new investment group to push a massive all-cash bid for Warner Bros. Discovery. Each fund would contribute $7 billion, totaling $21 billion, while Paramount Skydance would front $50 billion. Combined, the offer hits the $71 billion mark. The move follows Warner Bros. Discovery board rejecting an earlier $23.50 share offer from Ellison. Warner Brothers Discovery has set November 20th as the deadline, so 2 days from now, for initial bids, with Paramount, Comcast, and Netflix all expected to submit. And by then, we will probably have much more concrete numbers of who is actually involved and how involved they are. Because at that point, it becomes public information. At least that's my understanding of the situation. So Saudi's involvement comes as the media landscape shifts around political and strategic interests. The report notes Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who is just a horrible person, met with President Trump at the White House on Tuesday, while Comcast co-CEO Brian Roberts recently traveled to Riyadh for a PIF-hosted conference and visited Qiddiya, I think is how that's pronounced, to scout a potential Universal theme park. Interesting. However, according to Variety's source, Saudi Arabia has no incentive, quote unquote, to join a Comcast bid because the Trump administration allegedly dislikes Roberts, largely due to MSNBC/MS Now, their political coverage. Paramount's bid, meanwhile, gives each of the three Middle Eastern funds access to an IP, a movie premiere, and a film shoot, which the source described as a reputation and soft power play. Ellison-led consortium is now positioned as the highest reported bidder so far, with the November 20th deadline looming. Like I said, 2 days. All eyes are on Warner Brothers Discovery's board, which must choose between three drastically different futures: a Paramount Saudi alliance, a potential Comcast-backed purchase, or a Netflix-driven takeover. That is a little bit of a bleak landscape, if I do say so myself. But that's kind of that's the way. Yeah, reshoots. I think that's what I was looking for. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word reshoots, but yes, I think that's accurate. But this is kind of the future of our entertainment, at least at the moment. You have larger and larger entities entering into the media landscape, if you will. And they just kind of start to merge in different ways to become bigger entities and take over other things, and then back and forth, and that's just kind of the way it goes. And it becomes political because these are effectively entities that are aligned with government agencies. Less so in the U.S., but becoming more and more that direction even now. So, super interesting. This definitely has larger implications down the road, and I'm just kind of intrigued as to where it's going. I don't think it's a good place where it's going. I think that in the end, bad things are going to come of this. Less bad. Not bad like media, like it's a bad movie. Like, I think we're going to get some really fan servicey stuff, while behind the scenes, these government-related entities are doing very shady things, similarly to the way like Temu and other Chinese organizations are collecting data on American audiences and stuff. Like, I think it's going to be in a very similar vein, but time will only tell at this point. So that is what we have there. Let's move into something.
Thank you very much, nerds, for tuning in. If you want to level up your nerdy, geeky, pop culture knowledge, then don't forget to subscribe and do all of the things. Go check out the main channel, Generally Nerdy, for the larger portion. Again, you get all of the sections into one convenient video over on Generally Nerdy. The name of the show is The Week in Nerddom. Thank you for checking out this clip. We will see you next time. Before we go, though, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.